New exclusive videos are waiting for you on Boosty. You can support me and follow the link to subscribe to Boosty. There is an important survey going on at Boosty. Please take part in it. Enjoy watching. Description: how many obstacles does Naruko Uzumaki need to overcome to become happy? And will she cope? Or maybe it's better to give up. Part 2. What Naruto didn't expect to find in the school library was espionage and sabotage techniques. Apparently, the list of books hadn't been checked or cleaned for a long time, because such subjects were not taught now. In general, the school curriculum had been significantly changed and simplified. For example, the previously mandatory course on basic medical techniques was no longer required. It was sad, but I wanted to believe that this was happening because Konoha's relations with other villages were improving, and the younger generation would have time to catch up in the future. However, this did not stop Naruto from secretly breaking down the door and looking into the warehouse of materials for teachers, from where she took a copy of Fundamentals of Tactics and Strategy, and also an accidentally discovered First Stages of Economics. How such a book could have ended up in the academy is unclear, but it would be interesting to read. It could come in handy in the future, when the time comes to receive money for missions. She would always have time to return the books, because, judging by the layer of dust, only Yumino Irika, whose workaholism and zeal aroused involuntary admiration, came to the warehouse. But Irika-sensei himself quietly hated Naruto, so the girl tried to avoid him. Having put the rest of the books in a scroll and tenderly pressing the techniques to her chest, Naruto headed for the exit. Her training consisted of coming to the academy when the other classes had lessons in order to be seen as little as possible, pick up assignments, hand in completed ones, and sometimes write midterm tests. And then she could go home. Naruto noticed something dark on the windowsill out of the corner of her eye. Near a small window in an inconspicuous corner, hiding behind a sprawling lemon in a tub, sat a little boy in white shorts and a blue shirt, Naruto's aged peer. His black hair was sticking out comically at the back of his head, like the needles of a hedgehog. The girl came up to him. "What are you doing here?" The boy flinched, but when he saw Naruto, his black eyes flashed angrily. "Hiding," he muttered, jumping to the floor. He put his hands in his pockets and tried to assume an independent look. He looked so cute that Naruto couldn't help but smile widely. "Hiding, Datebeo?" She grabbed the boy's hand. "Well, then let's go." "Where?" The interlocutor was taken aback, but did not resist when Naruto dragged him to the roof. "We'll hide together. By the way, my name is Naruto." "Sasuke." "Sasuke, do you still have classes?" "No, it's the last lesson now. But I can't leave early, my brother is supposed to come for me." "That's great. I'm in no hurry either. Let's sit on the roof, I have a bento with me." The girl carefully closed the door to the roof and sealed it with a weak barrier, after which she turned to her new acquaintance, who was watching her actions with interest. She sat down in the corner, took 2 portions of lunch from the seal and patted them next to her. Sasuke tried to proudly refuse, but his stomach rumbled deafeningly. The guy blushed to the roots of his hair, pouted at Naruto's quiet laughter. "Let's go," she patted again and held out the chopsticks. The boy reluctantly nodded, still red from embarrassment, sat down next to her, and removed the lid of the box. "Bon appetit!" He clapped his hands, divided the chopsticks. And he pounced on the food as if he had not been fed for a week. Even behind his ears it was cracking. But at the same time he managed to remain neat and well-mannered. Not a crumb passed by his mouth, not a single grain of rice remained on his cheeks. Naruto watched him with interest, resting her cheek on her palm. She examined his shiny hair, graceful features, large black eyes. He reminded her of someone. "So who were you hiding from, Sasuke?" she asked when the boy satisfied his first hunger and sipped at a glass of green tea, which the girl also took from the scrolls. She herself did not want to eat, but she always carried lunch with her in case she met friends or children from the orphanage. "From girls," Sasuke muttered. "I don't understand them," he exclaimed indignantly, clenching his fists. "They always run after me, pestering me. Sasuke-kun, Sasuke-kun." He mimicked someone in a squeaky tone, grimacing. "I can't study like that. If I do something, it's cool. If I don't, it's even cooler." I keep quiet because I know everything. I don't keep quiet, I'm a genius. I can't even ask Iruka-sensei anything. Naruto laughed cheerfully. Despite the fact that they were the same age, Sasuke reminded her of the kids from the orphanage, a kind of younger brother suffering from his own popularity. That's because you're very cute, Sasuke, date bail, she explained. I'm not cute. He snorted indignantly. I'm a man, I can't be cute. Well, for now you're just a boy, Uzumaki noted reasonably. And you're cute. I can imagine what will happen when you grow up, she rolled her eyes almost dreamily. Girls will be stacked at your feet. It seemed that such a prospect scared Sasuke. I don't want this. There was almost fear in his eyes. I don't need this. I want to become a strong shinobi, like my brother. And even surpass Itachi. Itachi, Naruto drawled understandingly, guessing who Sasuke reminded her of. Indeed, there was something in common in their features. Although Itachi was definitely more handsome, to her taste. Yes, Sasuke lowered his head, hiding behind his hair. He is the genius of our clan, the best and strongest shinobi. Everyone praises him. I want to be like him. A stupid idea, date bail. What? Sasuke turned his entire body towards her, leaning forward, as if he was going to hit her. Although, he would have the right to do so, because the girl had just called his dream stupid. Sasuke is Sasuke, and Itachi is Itachi. It can't be any other way. Naruto looked at the sky, at the floating clouds, while explaining her point of view. As long as you follow your brother, until you choose your own path, you will forever remain his shadow. She turned her gaze to her interlocutor. Eye to eye, straight and open. They will always say about you, Sasuke, Itachi's younger brother. Or they can say, this is Sasuke. He has a brother, Itachi. The difference is almost imperceptible, but so significant. You will never become like Itachi, you will never reach his level, at least because you are not him. But you can always become his worthy relative, his brother. Even in your own way, but take a step next to him. On the same level with him. Not a genius of the clan, but a master in something of his own, an unrivaled specialist. Sasuke thought, fell silent, bowing his head again. Naruto was putting away empty boxes and teacups in the seal. Unnoticed, she herself ate her portion, carried away by observing Sasuke's behavior. Still, he is so cute. Like a sleepy Sota, you just want to squeeze his cheeks. The girl smiled at her thoughts while taking out sweets for dessert. She baked the cookies herself. Help yourself, pushed a portion to her interlocutor. He nodded, thanked, took the cookie and began to twirl it between his fingers. What do you think? Sasuke bit his lip. Will I be able to do it? Yes, Naruto shrugged. You just need to decide what you want to do. And you? His new comrade raised his eyes. What do you do? To be honest, I love Fuinjutsu, Uzumaki admitted. I'm weak in Genjutsu. I can resist, but not to everyone. Taijutsu and ninjutsu are great. I like training. I like developing new techniques. When strength flows through the body, when muscles ache from fatigue, and in your soul you understand that you did everything right, gave it your all. But Fuin, it's completely different. With the help of ink, paper, and a bit of chakra, you can create real miracles. Take away an entire arsenal, seal the wind or fire, subjugate the elements and technology. You can force a person to keep secrets, enslave their will completely. Or you can save their life by stopping the bleeding in time. It's amazing. When I draw seals, I seem to see my power flowing along with the ink on the sheet. Oh, sorry, I've been chatting for too long. Naruto scratched her head in embarrassment. She hadn't opened up to anyone like that for a long time, and there had never been anyone like that. The children in the orphanage were too young, they wouldn't understand. And she didn't trust Naruto so much, not completely. Even friends can have secrets from each other. But Sasuke evoked an intuitive desire to trust, to open up. Really, like a younger brother. It's okay, I understand, Sasuke was embarrassed. I feel the same way when I work with a sword. I like the way the sun reflects on the blade. I like to feel it as an extension of my hand. But my father objects to my training in swordsmanship. He thinks that I don't have enough inclination for it. He wants me to become a master of Genjutsu and awaken the dojutsu as soon as possible. Naruto shook her head. She didn't know Itachi's last name. Who knows how many Itachis there are in the village? Besides, he's an ANBU, which means he could have given a false name so as not to put himself in danger. But now that we were talking about the dojutsu, it followed that Sasuke was either an Uchiha or a Hyuga. The Byakugan can be identified from afar, and besides, there was only one Itachi Uchiha in the leaf, the son of the head of the Uchiha clan. At the same time, Naruto took into account the family resemblance. She had heard what they said about Fugaku-san. He held the clan with an iron fist, did not allow the slightest contradiction to his orders. And with children, apparently, he behaved in the same way. Naruto thought about it. It seemed like she had some free time, and she didn't want to leave Sasuke alone. He needed friends. A sly expression appeared on her face. Listen, Sasuke, how about training secretly from your father? Say that you became friends with a classmate at the academy, and now you are training with him to become stronger, to become worthy of the Uchiha name, and think of something yourself. She twirled her hand in the air. Will you teach me? Sasuke's face reflected a desperate mixture of extreme surprise, disbelief, and hope. Yes, Naruto nodded with a smile. But I warn you right away, I am not familiar with samurai techniques and katanas. Of all the swords, I only know how to use a ninjutsu, and I can only teach you how to use it. If you agree, come to the training ground tomorrow after classes. We will train day bail. Sasuke's gaze lit up, and then went out. The boy drooped, biting his lip. Father, Naruto partly understood his hesitation. Most likely, his father's authority had always been unquestionable for Sasuke. The boy tried his best to get his approval. For some reason, this was the very model of behavior that came to mind when thinking about Fugaku Uchiha. Sasuke, Naruto became serious, raised the boy's face, looking straight into his eyes. What I'm about to say may be unethical, but still think about it. We live in the hidden shinobi village, where you are the heir to a powerful clan. What father would refuse to teach his son to use another weapon, especially if he is interested in it, and he can succeed? I think it's all about your interest. Father didn't want you to find a hobby and forget about your duties to the clan. To forget who you are by blood. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. You know too much about my father. Naruto shrugged. Rumors are the most unreliable, but the most reliable source of information, if you know how to discard the unnecessary. She saw that Sasuke had already made a decision. It probably wasn't nice to use the boy's stubbornness and desire to prove that he was the best, so that he would go against his father's will. But in this particular case, Naruto wanted Sasuke, albeit through trial and error, to find his own path. Find what he liked to do. For some reason, being around him awakened a desire to take care of him, and take care of him, like a younger brother. If they see us, the Uchiha began. Those who see, they will not tell, Naruto winked, casting a sideways glance at the crown of the tree growing next to the academy. Krona rustled her leaves in agreement. Naruto stood up, put the scrolls in her dress pocket, and shook it out. I'll be waiting for our training together, Sasuke. The boy nodded enthusiastically, and Naruto was once again struck by how cute he was. Naruto walked slowly through the streets of the village, thinking over the information she had received today. Shinobi were not talkative by nature, and even more so, no one would share information with a small child who had not yet entered the academy. No matter how smart and trained she was. In addition, there were orders of non-disclosure and seals that did not allow chatter. Therefore, Uzumaki had to get by on her own. She could easily afford to send a dozen clones around the village under various henge. And you could see a red cat sitting for hours on the gunsmith's shop or a dove on a tree branch next to the archive. Even if such data was fragmentary, exaggerated and embellished, there was still a grain of truth in it. And Naruto, after many trials and errors, learned to isolate it. Before that, she had never been interested in the appearance of the most brilliant shinobi of the leaf. She could not even imagine that the heir of the Uchiha clan would dare to meet her. In general, the Uchiha pointedly ignored her, did not notice her, and this prompted certain thoughts. Especially in light of the friendship of Naruto's mother with Fugaku's wife, Mikoto, about whom Kurama told the girl. Either they hated her, like everyone else, or, more likely, they had long-term plans. She would like to know what they were. But she was not going to use Sasuke for this, Because friends are not used, date bail. Her path lay to a small weapons shop on one of the central streets. The only one that did not belong to the Uchiha. As in any other village, in Konoha missions were the main source of income only for high-ranking ninja. They were given appropriate tasks, after which they most often went to the hospital for treatment. The rest had to earn extra money and generally get by. For example, some young Chunin girls came to the orphanage to help with the children. When there were still many of them there. Clans also had their own businesses. Akimichi specialized in medicine, Yamanaka flowers and supply of raw materials to the hospital. And the Uchiha, in addition to the police, were engaged in private security and weapons manufacturing. The village set relatively low prices for missions and therefore took a large percentage of the payment. If a person wanted high-quality security without an intermediary in the person of the Hokage, he could easily contact the Uchiha directly. You could also pay them for training existing fighters, their training, testing skills, etc. Madara, with the full consent of the first Hokage, reserved this right for himself back when the Leaf was founded. Their company manufactured weapons completely, from the selection of steel to polishing and varnishing the scabbard. They manufactured everything, from ordinary kunai of not the highest quality, which were used in genin lessons, to special, individual orders. Although the prices were a little high, they were still moderate. And the quality matched the price. In this area, the clan had only one competitor left, the shop Naruto was going to. But the old owner did this more out of love for his craft than out of greed. Because his prices were even lower than those of the Uchiha. Naruto constantly bought training senbons, kunai, shurikens from pure metal there, which she wouldn't mind losing or breaking. But the combat kit, like the short sword, the shinobi bought in the Uchiha store. Money is not important when it comes to preserving life on a mission. Good afternoon. Naruto entered the blessed coolness of the shop. The old man at the counter immediately turned to the customer. Naruto, you haven't looked in for a while. I thought you'd gotten stuck up and forgotten about the old man. He chided her affectionately, wagging his finger. The girl laughed. How could I, Toshi-san, date Bayo? I was settling and they gave me my own apartment. She couldn't help but brag. Oh, congratulations. Now all that's left is to find a groom. It's not right for such a beauty to have no betrothed. Naruto blushed embarrassedly. Toshi-san was the only one who called her a beauty. Did you drop by on business or just to visit? Oh, right. The girl slapped her forehead. I need a ninja for my first training fights. Choose. The old man immediately laid several copies on the counter, waved his hand towards a glass display case, in which more swords were located on special stands. Naruto thought, carefully examining the wealth of weapons. All the swords were very good, and therefore it was especially difficult to choose. The door swung open, slammed into the wall, and a girl slightly older than Naruto flew into the store in a pink blouse and with funny bumps of black hair. Grandpa! She screamed, taking out a scroll. Ten, the old man hissed at her, don't you see I have customers? His eyes were laughing. Naruto returned the smile. It's okay, Toshi-san, I've already made my choice. She handed him a short sword in a simple, artless scabbard. Tenten came closer, looked closely, then thoughtfully assessed Naruto's external parameters. Uzumaki literally saw the numbers of calculations and logical, well-ordered conclusions clicking in her head. Apparently, in everything that concerned weapons and their owners, the granddaughter went to her grandfather. If I were you, I would choose another one, she said doubtfully. Special models of ninjutsu were created especially for a woman's hand. This is not for me, she shook her head. This is a gift for a friend. He will learn how to use it, and he will choose a weapon himself. And I already have a sword. Naruto took her short shinobi sword from the seal on her wrist. Wow! The girl jumped closer, raised her pleading eyes to Uzumaki. Can I hold it? She nodded, and Tenten carefully, as if it could fall apart, took the sword in her hands. The fingers reverently ran over the simple black, red-tinted scabbard, tied with a rope, and an almost ecstatic pleasure was written on the face. The blade silently and slowly slid out, the light flashed on the sharpened blade in a silver wave. Uchiha rarely let anyone into the store just to look, the grandfather quietly shared, watching the unusual reaction of his granddaughter. And your sword is special, right? Naruto smiled at the corners of her lips. Even she was not going to reveal all the secrets. The old man nodded understandingly. Uzumaki knew that he would keep his guesses silent. The sword was called the Wind Moan. Like all her weapons, Naruto bought it in the Uchiha store. The clan not only created weapons, but also sold what they found on missions if it was not in demand by their own warriors. The girl's attention was immediately drawn to a simple, slightly dull blade in the farthest and dustiest corner of the store. The seller said that it was found in the ruins of the whirlpool, during one of the missions. But no one could use it. The blade had a frankly bad balance, it was difficult to sharpen, and no one knew the purpose of most of the seals on the handle. It was simply put on the shelf and forgotten, in the hope that someone would buy it one day. The thrifty Uchiha were not going to throw away even a bad product, and they set a minimal price for it. Naruto took advantage of this. Not so much for training, but for the unknown seals on the handle, the blade itself, and the scabbard. After the destruction of the hidden Whirlpool village, it became almost impossible to get information about Fuinjutsu. Only a few masters of this art preserved some books, but even they were no match for the knowledge of the true Uzumaki. If not for Kakashi, Naruto would not have even known where to approach the ancestral talent. The key to the blade was her own blood. The Uzumaki knew what they were doing. Naruto accidentally cut herself while examining the sword. Blood slid down the blade, the handle, and dripped onto the scabbard. Kurama immediately healed the cut. The previously unnoticed seal flared up, and Naruto found himself with a small piece of paper in his hands with a short list of all the fuins on the weapon, its short characteristics and name. The Uzumaki wrote such explanations for all swords, showing the customer how to get the piece of paper. However, he still had to tinker with the seals, get used to them. What the Uchiha called the wrong balance and poor sharpening was in fact a kind of disguise, which even the Sharingan could not penetrate. The Uzumaki took into account that the weapon could fall into the wrong hands. It was not for nothing that they were considered recognized masters of Fuinjutsu. The sword itself turned out to be excellent. "Thank you," Tenten returned the blade to its owner. "This weapon, Tenten," the girl's tone warned. The new acquaintance grinned. "A regular weapon from the Uchiha shop," she said loudly. "My grandfather and I have much better ones." "Thank you. By the way, my name is Naruto." "Nice to meet you." "Me too." "He is an Uchiha." "Yes," Naruto nodded, continuing to pour water from palm to palm. "He is Sasuke Uchiha." "Yes." "A descendant of Madara." "It is possible." Kurama groaned and hopelessly covered his eyes with his paw. Sometimes it became completely impossible to argue with Uzumaki. Naruto often descended into her inner world. She liked the calm atmosphere of this place. The bare walls with numerous patterns did not seem cold, and the water caressed and embraced her. Uzumaki never ceased to be amazed at how her father managed to create such a perfect storage of chakra in the body of a newborn child, which was the water flooding the floor. After all, fuin always affects the body of a shinobi, so it is not recommended to apply complex, serious seals until the end of puberty. The Kyuubi cell was created by her parents, their shared knowledge and efforts. And every time she found herself here, Naruto felt their care and concern. As if she was being hugged by warm hands. When she was very little, if it were up to her, she would have spent her entire life here. She could not get enough of the warmth of the catacombs. "And you are still going to teach him?" Kurama asked, tearing her away from her thoughts. The argument lasted for quite a long time. Kyuubi hated Madara Uchiha with all his soul and believed that nothing good could be expected from his descendants, in which he tried to convince his bearer. But Naruto was adamant. "Yes." "Why?" "I liked him," the girl shrugged. She had no other explanation. "I just liked him, Kurama. When I look at him, it seems to me that my little brother is standing in front of me." A heavy sigh escaped from the fox's chest. Naruto beamed. This was a sign of surrender. So she stood up and went to the bars of a huge cage with a paper seal on the main doors. Everything here was designed so that the demon could not get out or even influence its host, but could share energy. True, over the long years, Kurama had significantly weakened the seal. And Naruto helped him. After all, this was her subconscious, her inner world. And only she set the rules here. She did not want the friend that the fox had become to be a simple prisoner in the darkness, and she the overseer on the other side of the cage. And although Naruto could not yet influence the seal created with the help of Shinigami, she still managed to do something. The girl touched the cage and concentrated. The water chakra rose under her feet like a small typhoon, responding to the silent order. And the space between the bars increased. Naruto calmly stepped into the cage and sat down on one of the fluffy tails. Kurama shrank a little in size so that he could lay his muzzle on her lap. Scarlet fatigue and care shone in the fox's eyes. "Be careful, cub," he grumbled, while Naruto stroked his nose and ears. "The Uchiha are nothing but trouble. They will only bring you suffering." "But it will be my choice, Datebao." The girl grinned. "I will not abandon my friends. I am sure that one day you will accept them too." The demon remained silent. Sasuke was already waiting for her on the platform when the girl approached there. Calm, focused, and inside boiling with excitement. But he had made a decision. Uzumaki understood this immediately, and he was not going to back down from it. "Such an Uchiha." Naruto waved at him, sat down under a tree and patted the ground next to her. This time the boy joined in without hesitation. She took out the purchased sword and handed it to him. "Here, this is your weapon for the time being. What do you know about ninjutsu?" "That's the name of a short shinobi sword," reported Sasuke, stroking the scabbard with delight. "Unlike samurai swords, they can be used not only for cutting, but also for stabbing. In order not to attract attention, they are not decorated, they try to make them as inconspicuous as possible. The handle is braided with cord, and the scabbard is covered with leather and varnished so that it does not get wet. They are also very strong and can be used as a perch while observing the enemy," Sasuke thought. It was becoming obvious that he really loved swords and was looking for any information about them. "The guard is made square, and it can easily cut a throat in close combat, if you add a little wind chakra. And the scabbard is usually made a few centimeters longer than the blade." Naruto demonstrated the difference. "You can put secret documents, blinding powder, and even poison here. The same hiding place is in the sword's hilt. The heavy tip of the scabbard can stun or gouge out an eye. But the main difference," the girl ran her fingertip along the blade, "there is no engraving or groove for draining blood on the blade, like on samurai ones." "Why?" the Uchiha thought, frowning comically. Then his face brightened. He hit the open palm of the other with the fist of one hand. "Because when struck, a sword with a drain makes a whistle. And the engraving rusts faster. But this does not apply to Uzumaki seals. The masters protected the steel from rust well, even better than in modern times. Perhaps, when you learn, you will be able to buy yourself such a sword." Sasuke nodded. In general, he was more alive than those Uchiha that Naruto had seen. Even Itachi seemed like a perfect porcelain doll with no emotions. A very strong and beautiful doll, but still not a person. He was so used to controlling himself that, even relaxing with Naruto by the pond, he did not move a single muscle in his face. "Are you still sure that you want to learn how to wield a ninja? It will be difficult to relearn later, Datebao." "I am sure." "Okay." Naruto stood up, brushed off her dress. "Let's start with the usual exercises for endurance, flexibility, etc. You need to warm up well before getting acquainted with the basic movements." She looked slyly at the frozen boy. "Well, what are we standing there for? Let's run, Datebao. 20 laps, without using chakra. And if you can handle it, I'll invite Gai-san. With his power of youth." The younger Uchiha visibly shuddered. Apparently, meeting the green beast of Konoha had not passed him by. He immediately took a low start. Naruto, chuckling, ran after him. She also needed to train. Sasuke had already run away, excited by the events of the past day, and Naruto sank under a tree and raised her eyes to the sky, where the first stars had already begun to appear. And barely dodged a fireball and the shuriken hidden in it. "I didn't know you were so against my communication with your brother," she exclaimed cheerfully, jumping onto a tree branch. Itachi did not answer. He attacked her again. Black crows circled around Naruto. They dropped feathers, croaked deafeningly. The girl tried not to look into the enemy's eyes. That is why it was not recommended to fight genjutsu masters one-on-one. There should always be someone on hand to help her get out of the illusion in time. Naruto had no one, but she wasn't going to give up. Just don't look her in the eye, listen. Here. Uzumaki made several seals and dissolved in the oncoming wind. Itachi wasn't the only one who could surprise. She didn't disappear, just, the illusion was briefly interrupted by the appearance of a directed flow of chakra that permeated the air. That was enough for Uzumaki to run to the other end of the training ground. From there, blades of wind flew at the Uchiha, the sword pushed back kunai, blocked the thrust of another blade. She didn't know how long they fought like that. Stubborn, persistent. Equal. Itachi tried to lure her into illusions, his main weapon. And Naruto avoided them very cleverly, each time using air techniques. Her advantage was that few people in the village owned wind. And therefore, almost no one studied it the way she did. Except for Sarutobi Asuma with his brass knuckles, but even he mainly used the wind sharpener, while Naruto wanted more. The kunai scattered throughout the clearing during the run began to glow as soon as the girl made the necessary seals. Threads stretched from them to each other, trapping both opponents. Only Uzumaki had an ink mark on her wrist just for such cases. A kind of key to all her barrier techniques. The air became thicker, hotter, it resembled hot syrup. And it suffocated its captives. Naruto activated the key and began to move towards one of the walls of the barrier. Will you leave me here? Uchiha raised an eyebrow. Tell me why you attacked me, I'll tell you how to cancel the technique. Naruto made a counteroffer. She knew how to bargain and loved it. A hungry childhood had taught him not to give up his positions. Uchiha tried to shrug, which was difficult in the jelly-like air. Large beads of sweat were rolling down his face, he was already breathing shallowly and quickly. I wanted to check, a few more sighs. But even now he did not give in, did not kneel down, although his gaze had already become absent-minded. I care about my brother. And what did you decide, Date Bail? The girl asked with interest. Are you suitable? Thank you. Uzumaki smiled and turned to leave. Itachi coughed behind her. Technique, he whispered. How to cancel? There is no way, a shrug. Automatic cancellation. As soon as you stop breathing, the barrier will fall. I didn't do something right, she scratched her head. Itachi's eyes rolled back in his head, he fainted. Naruto followed the beautiful movement of the wave of hair, hiding her face with a black veil. The barrier went out, letting her through to the supposedly corpse. Only Uzumaki knew too well what Anbu were capable of to approach the Uchiha who had been deceived in his best feelings. After all, she herself had given a hint. And Itachi had used it. After all, she had not said that he should die, only that he should stop breathing. And Itachi held the air in his lungs. So she threw a few peas with a sleeping composition at him. Only when the smoke cleared, she decided to approach the enemy. Perhaps he really loved his brother, since he decided to attack his own, within the village. After all, she could very well accuse him of attempted murder, since she was neither of age nor of official level suitable for his training. But in fact, Naruto sank down onto the ground, plowed by their techniques, brushed the thick strands from his pale face. So handsome. So cute. Long eyelashes, chiseled cheekbones, gracefully curved lips. And even those 2 deep wrinkles near the nose did not spoil him at all. She ran her fingertips over them, touched her lips, noting that she was smiling against her will. Sleeping Itachi, for some reason, her heart sank next to him. She wanted to get closer, to become closer. Naruto had not felt such desires since childhood, when she dreamed of parental love and affection. But her feelings for Itachi had little in common with those feelings. She wanted something completely different. Her hand was intercepted by strong, but graceful, thin fingers. They squeezed it painfully, almost to the point of crunching. Black eyes opened slightly, and there was no anger or condemnation in them. Almost approval. I'm glad I passed your test, Date Bail, Naruto beamed. And then she pouted. But why didn't you tell me that you were an Uchiha? Surprise flitted across Itachi's face. You didn't know? He seemed amazed by this fact. I've heard about the genius of the Uchiha clan, but I've never been interested in what he looks like, the girl shrugged. And how did you find out the terrible truth? The corners of her lips lifted in a hint of a smile, and Naruto's heart did another somersault. Uzumaki blushed, cleared her throat, and tried to pull herself together. Sasuke mentioned dojutsu, which immediately reduces the number of suspects. The guy nodded understandingly. And I also took into account your family resemblance when he mentioned Itachi's older brother. That's it, the Uchiha drawled. You're great. Thank you. They both simultaneously looked in the direction from which a light rustling of bushes was heard. Someone very curious, but careless, was quickly moving away from the training ground. Naruto covered her mouth with her hand to keep from laughing. Your brother is very, cute, the Uchiha finished after her with a sigh. They exchanged glances, and Naruto laughed. Loudly, ringingly, from the heart. Itachi only slightly twisted his lips into a slight smile, but it seemed to the Uzumaki to be real laughter. I'll see you off so that our patrols don't detain you. Itachi stood up and extended his hand to the girl. She accepted the help, feeling the cool palm squeeze her thin, hot fingers. Very, very strongly. And her heart was beating so hard that the blood was pulsing in her ears. Itachi did not look in her direction when they ran along the roofs. He did not allow her to unclasp her hands. On Naruto's table, a plate with 3 dango sticks was waiting again. The girl ate sweet balls in a viscous sauce and looked at the quickly retreating silhouette in a white vest. The day had been wonderful. And by October, her usual life was shattered into pieces. She was urgently called to the Hokage, torn away from practicing the material from the textbook. Naruto knocked on the office door and entered. Inside, on small sofas, sat the third in the company of elders Hamura and Koharu and the head of ANBU Danzo. Untouched green tea was cooling on the table. Hokage-sama, elders, Danzo-san, she bowed to them respectfully. In private, she could call the third a nasty, harmful old man, but she had no right to undermine his authority in front of everyone. Although sometimes she wanted to. Naruto, sit down, the Hokage pointed to a free chair next to the sofas. The girl became wary. Apparently, the news was not good. Not for her. Otherwise, why would the whole company hide their gaze? The third spoke. Naruto, 2 days ago, the head of the Uchiha clan, Fugaku-san, presented us with a contract drawn up and signed by the 4th Hokage. A marriage contract. According to it, you are obliged to marry one of Fugaku-san's sons. Naruto felt like the world around her froze. The blood drained from her face. Father made a contract with the Uchiha marriage. She saw only the red and green beads of the long earrings of Elder Koharu in front of her and clung to them so as not to fall. She wheezed. Koharu put a cup of tea in front of her, which the girl drained in one go, not paying attention to the temperature. Can I look at this contract? Yes, we have a copy. Hamura handed over several sheets of paper, stapled together. The lines ran before her eyes, the letters jumped. No, this will not do. Uzumaki resolutely rubbed her face, drank another cup of tea, and resolutely pulled herself together. Enough whining. Her fate was being decided now. She took up the document again, this time more soberly and meaningfully. A simple marriage contract, without confirmation of the first wedding night and pregnancy after a certain period. In this she was lucky. Most likely, the father guessed or expected that the QB would have to be placed in her, and wanted to play it safe. And also to take care. 2 days. Naruto bit her lip. 2 days ago, she had turned 7 years old, the age when a shinobi can be responsible for their actions and decisions. The contract did not specify the term of the marriage. So why did Fugaku-san prefer to demand its fulfillment right now, without waiting for the bride to grow up? What are the Uchiha up to? Naruto, the third said softly. This is the will of the 4th Hokage, one of the last laws he passed. I cannot cancel it. But, if you say that you are against this marriage, I will find a way to help you leave him. Naruto looked up. The adults looked worried, serious, and a little guilty. After all, it was their law that made the daughter of the 4th a renegade, an outcast hated by everyone. The name of the Jinchuriki was hidden so that she would not be kidnapped by other countries until she was able to stand up for herself. Naruto cowardly preferred not to think about other reasons. The ruling elite was on her side for now, and that was enough. For now. And then she would have a strong clan behind her that would not give her up to anyone. Not because she was so irreplaceable, but because Uzumaki was a Jinchuriki. A bitter taste appeared on her tongue. Naruto winced. Life was not a fairy tale, she had long understood that. But still, it was a shame. Which of his sons did Fugaka-san offer? This time she managed to control her voice. Uchiha Itachi, Danzo joined the conversation for the first time, drilling the girl with a piercing gaze of his only eye. It is written in the contract. Oh yes, I see, she did not pay attention to the most important thing. Your decision, Uzumaki Naruto? Remember, you can refuse. No, I agree. What? The third one jumped up. Naruto, are you sure? Yes, the girl spoke calmly, with a soft smile, and tried to look resigned. Sooner or later, but I will have to fulfill the terms of this agreement. You can't run away from it. Besides, there are many advantages for me in this marriage. And Uchiha Itachi is not the worst candidate for a husband. But pregnancy, Danzo gritted through his teeth. The desire of the previous Jinchuriki to have a child led to the almost complete destruction of the village and the death of the fourth Hokage. No one is forcing me to give birth, Date-Bayo, Naruto snapped. She stood up and bowed. Thank you for wanting to help me. May I go? Go. The third let her go. Naruto nodded and left the office, closing the door behind her. She quickly walked home and locked the door. And only then did she realize that she was still clutching a copy of the hated contract. The girl angrily threw it into the corner and fell onto the bed, burying her face in the pillow. Small, angry tears ran down her cheeks. Naruto, look what I can do! Sasuke balanced on the tip of a tree branch on one leg, swaying dangerously. And at the same time he managed to perform dexterous movements with his sword. A little genius. You're a good boy, Sasuke, come down. Naruto sank down onto the grass. She had already managed to pull herself together and think it over thoroughly. Between shinobi, especially clan ones, marriages for love were very rare. Instead, they calculated everything, the compatibility of genomes, characters, views. In the case of clans, territorial and monetary benefits were also calculated. Naruto had nothing to offer except herself, the Kyuubi inside and pure Uzumaki genetics. She was often told that she took her father's character, but her mother's blood and body. She was a true Uzumaki, with all the circumstances that entailed. That's a lot of walking weapon and a master of Fuinjutsu. But few people remembered the peculiarities of this Scarlet clan. Marriage with Itachi would bring her a lot of benefits. She would have a family, relatives, new status in Konoha. She was always good at convincing herself. Sasuke sat down next to her. I heard about your marriage to Enai-san, he began. Naruto smiled, ruffled the unruly hair on the top of her head. Everything is fine, Sasuke. Don't worry. The boy turned to her. Naruto, Itachi Enai-san is not bad, don't think so. On the contrary, he is very good, strong, he will be able to stand up for you. He will protect. I know, Sasuke. She still did not remove her hand from the warm top of her head. How to explain to a child that, despite all her self-conviction, she still felt bad and offended? Neither status, nor money, nor power had ever mattered to her. Naruto knew how, and was used to, relying only on herself. And, like all girls, she dreamed of love. Let it not be big, like her parents, to the point of pain, to death, but at least. It is a shame when instead you are used blindly, like a soulless thing. It is especially offensive that it was Itachi, whom she was used to considering practically a friend. He could not have not known about his father's initiative, so he agreed, but look at it from the other side, we will become real brother and sister, she winked more cheerfully. Date-Bayo. Sasuke picked up the beaming. Naruto grinned, noticing that she was barely pretending anymore. After all, she still had 6 months to prepare for the wedding. The Uchiha were a clan that respected traditions. There was a knock on the door, then another, and another. Naruto opened her eyes with difficulty, openly yawning. She had been learning new poison compositions until the morning, slow, almost undetectable by standard medical techniques. Judging by the master's sarcastic grin and his caustic comments, this could be useful to her in her family life. Naruto snorted at all the kind offers, sneered in response. And she felt how the tension gradually released, how it became easier to breathe. In the end, nothing terrible had happened. Itachi was an excellent match for marriage. And marriage in the shinobi village is when the husband and wife may not see each other for months or meet only in the evenings, coming home. And it was not worth forgetting about the 3 heights, by which the girls chose their grooms. And Itachi fully corresponded to them. For his age, he was tall, which meant he would become even taller. He was well trained and wealthy. The ideal groom, which Naruto never aspired to. Besides, you can try to improve your relationship with your husband. Become friends. So by the end of the lesson, Naruto found real benefits from the imposed bonds. And for the first time, she wondered what did Itachi himself think. What was his reaction? She had become so accustomed to the idea that he was aware of the events. What if he also knew nothing about the agreement? A pretty dark-haired woman in a light dress and holding a basket in her hands appeared behind the door. "Good morning, Naruto-chan. Will you let me in?" The girl nodded slowly, sleepily, and moved, letting the guest in. "My name is Uchiha Mikoto. I am Itachi and Sasuke's mother," the woman introduced herself when the door slammed shut. "Naruto Uzumaki, Mikoto-san," Naruto bowed. "May I offer you some tea?" While the water was heating up, the girl managed to tidy herself up, although she didn't braid her hair. Mikoto waited patiently in the kitchen, looking around. "I brought some homemade baked goods with me." She smiled and pulled the basket closer. "Thank you." Naruto took her own obligatory tea item out of the cabinet. "Help yourself." They sat in silence for a while, taking small sips. Naruto loved tea and was an expert in it. There might not be any other food in the house except rice with a little carrot and onion, but several types of tea were a must. Red, floral, a summer bouquet. Jasmine, tender and gentle, restorative and calming chamomile. And viscous, intoxicating ginger. "I came to warn you that the wedding ceremony is scheduled for a week." There was almost undisguised sympathy in the woman's eyes. Naruto choked on another sip. "What do you mean, Datebayo?" She was counting on the obligatory 6 months. And the preparations? They had to prepare for almost 6 months for a real traditional wedding. They had to send out invitations to all the guests in advance, sew costumes for the bride and groom, and this is long and troublesome, because a woman's kimono is a real work of art. It is woven, sewn and painted by hand. It requires silver threads and gold and silver powder to decorate the fabric. It is not that Naruto wanted to have such an outfit, but she desperately needed a delay to get used to the idea of marriage. Mikoto understood her, because she took her hand. And the Uchiha's hand seemed unnaturally hot to the girl compared to her cold paw. "We have everything ready. Since there are no relatives on your side, and a marriage contract has been concluded, we can do without the traditional engagement ceremony. And the kimono is sewn. I came to offer you help in preparing for the ceremony itself." "I would be very grateful," the girl whispered, amazed. Mikoto put her cup down, walked up to her interlocutor and hugged her by the shoulders. She, pale as a sheet, looked at her with frightened, wide eyes. "Naruto, I understand perfectly well how you feel. Although I got married when I was much older than you, my marriage to Fugaku was also discussed by my parents. And I had no right to refuse. Itachi." She smiled a little helplessly. "He's not a bad boy, just a little complicated. Understand, this is also a hard step for him. I suspect that he had no choice, and he used his last resort." "Me?" It sounded pitiful. Mikoto sighed and pressed the girl's head to her chest. "Cry," she whispered. "If you want." Naruto bit her lip. Her shoulders shook. But her eyes remained dry. Naruto sat under the window, closing her eyes. Uzumaki did not know how to be sad. And she never gave up. The first reaction, written off as shock, had already passed. And she was able to soberly assess everything once again. Why was she whining like a little girl? Love marriages are so rare. And despite the circumstances, Itachi offered her his name and his protection. He was still a good man. And she would try to be a worthy support for him, as a good wife should. She was still a little scared of the upcoming life in a new society, new responsibilities, But Naruto had already overcome so many difficulties in her life. She would cope this time too. The ceremony was tomorrow. Something heavy and alive lay on her knee. Naruto opened her eyes and saw the sad face of a ninja dog. "Hello, Pakin, long time no see." The girl smiled and patted the knee-kin behind the ears. "Did something happen? Or were you sent on a reconnaissance mission?" She narrowed her eyes slyly. Pakin sighed resignedly. Naruto suspected that this dog was never in a good mood at all. "On a reconnaissance mission," he admitted. "Can they come in to see you?" "Of course, Date Bail. I'll be glad to see them." And then the jonin of the Hidden Leaf Village appeared in the window. "Hello? We didn't want to bother you," Itachi explained embarrassedly, scratching the back of his head. "It's okay, come in." Naruto went to the cabinets. "What kind of tea should we brew for each other?" It took some time to get comfortable in the Uzumaki's small living room, move the bed and create new furniture. Now Naruto understood why they had dragged a newcomer into their company Tenzo. With the help of wood techniques, he provided the entire company with chairs. Naruto introduced herself to him, placed cups on the table. Anko took out the sweets she had bought in advance from the seal. In large, very large quantities. She knew that for Uzumaki this was the best sedative. And when everything calmed down, they settled down with cups and mugs in their hands and said, "How are you?" How Genma was going to drink tea with Saban in his mouth is a separate story. Naruto smiled softly. "It's fine now," she admitted. "It was worse before, much worse, but friends didn't need to know about it. They were already worried, judging by their appearance." "Sorry, we couldn't come earlier," Anko apologized. "They gave us a subtle hint that we should leave you alone for a while." "Hinted?" Naruto was surprised. "Who?" Itachi Uchiha Yato-san shuddered. The memories clearly did not please him. "It's hard to argue with a full-fledged Sharingan, even for me," Itachi drawled. A wave of gratitude passed through his heart. Maybe this marriage was not such a mistake. He's with the clan now, getting ready, so we managed to slip in here. Anko's eyes were shining. The Kunoichi loved espionage, sabotage, and generally everything hidden in secret. Succeeded? Slip in? It seems like my windows are always open. Date bail. Naruto thought she was missing something very important. The jonin exchanged glances and grinned. "That didn't cancel out your fiancé on the roof." Asuma puffed on his cigarette. "Itachi has been guarding you all this time," explained the kind Kurenai, who had only recently joined the ranks of the jonin. Even Gai-san couldn't distract him. Maybe it was the order of the clan head so that no one could harm the heir's bride or influence her decision. Anko began ingratiatingly, smiling slyly and her eyes sparkling slyly. "But something tells me that this is about something else. Because someone from the ranks would have been enough for protection." Naruto blushed. She didn't know what to believe and what not. She didn't want to get her hopes up ahead of time. And it was becoming clear who had brought her and secretly placed on the table the Mokuroku a list of relatives with an exact indication of kinship, so that the girl would not make a mistake at the wedding banquet, who to call what. The handwriting was elegant, but firm, confident. "Itachi, the motives of the Uchiha's actions are unpredictable." Tenzo joined the conversation for the first time. He was twisting the mask in his hands and looking at the girl with unblinking eyes, which made him look very much like an owl. "Itachi's motives are doubly so. He always calculates the situation much further than ordinary people. His goals are so complex and distant that they are not easy to see." "Come on, Tenzo," Anko waved him off. "He's just a pedantic bore. His constantly imperturbable appearance makes me shudder." "Brrr," the girl shrugged. "It seems like he hasn't been taught to feel." Naruto couldn't help but smile. How different this was from what Kurama had told her about the Uchiha's fiery temperament. The jonin argued, told funny, amusing stories that had happened to them recently. Soon they were joined by Might Guy, who had escaped the clutches of the Irionin at the hospital where he had ended up after the mission. And he had brought several bottles of sake with him. Even the adherent of a healthy and intense lifestyle sometimes allowed himself and his entourage to relax. Or was it Itachi who influenced him that way? The company did not set themselves the goal of getting drunk or getting the bride drunk. On the eve of the ceremony in the Uchiha clan, they would not be patted on the head for that. Just Remove Naruto's anxiety for a while, make her forget about it. The girl drank only a sip. She did not like the sake, despite its softness, it still hit her head and stung her nose. She had to quickly remove the symptoms of intoxication, driving the fox's chakra through the body. The others laughed, relaxed. Even Tenzo, who had been tense before, smiled shyly. They could not come to the ceremony or the banquet. After all, they were simple jonin, but they also could not fail to celebrate and support their friend. Guy amazed everyone with the power of youth. And probably, only thanks to his shouts about the noise, the neighbors haven't come yet. No one wanted to mess with the best master of taijutsu. Yato-san swore to help drag the precious ficus. Anko, giggling, tried to explain to the blushing Naruto what awaits her on her first wedding night. And she explained, with excerpts from a biology textbook for children. Relaxed Anko is a funny Anko. By midnight, it was decided to wrap up the get-together. The jonins left. Fortunately, they weren't very drunk. Still laughing, Anko was dragged away by her boss, Ibiki, who wished Naruto luck and happiness in marriage. The girl was so taken aback that she could only nod. And Konoha's chief torturer, winking, said that it would be easy to deal with her husband, especially if he helped at the request of this misunderstanding, who absolutely doesn't know how to drink. He demonstratively shook Anko, who was throwing herself around her boss's neck. Naruto remembered that each of them had gotten no more than 3 sips of alcohol. What would she do if she drank more? Marino Ibiki rolled his eyes and said that even he would prefer not to know about some things. A sad Pakken saw Hataki off. Naruto consoled the dog that there would always be sugar bones for him in her kitchen. Niken noticeably cheered up, but Hataki became despondent. He had not been promised anything. Tenzo promised to look after his senpai. The others left on their own, quietly. Well, as quietly as Guy could move, also not knowing how to drink. Ginma and Yato went after him. Uzumaki suspected that they were collecting dirt on the green beast. Kurenai left in the company of Asuma. The couple quietly talked about something among themselves. Without them, the apartment became somehow quiet, empty. Naruto sighed, ran her hand along the wall of the bedroom living room. Tomorrow she would have to leave the apartment that had become her home forever. What awaited her? But despite all her worries, she slept soundly that night. In the morning they came for her. Naruto had cleaned the apartment by that time, licking it until it was shiny. It would come in handy if something didn't work out or if Sasuke, when he grew up, needed his own living space, independent of the clan. Mikoto smiled welcomingly when Naruto bowed to her. Are you ready? She asked about everything, worried. And first of all, for her son. Of course, Date Bayo. Naruto felt like someone froze her emotions. The excitement passed. She suddenly didn't care. She could handle it. Mikoto and the other women washed her in the bathroom for a long time, scrubbing and rubbing until her skin turned red from her efforts. And she didn't want to hear about Naruto's independence. On the wedding day, the bride's mother should do this, she said simply. Today, I want to replace her for you. Naruto nodded silently, surrendering to the woman's skillful hands. They sat her down on a special stool, and Mikoto began to carefully comb her hair, tangled after washing. With careful movements, she separated the strands, ran a brush over each one, waiting for it to dry. You have very beautiful hair, she said softly, interrupting the soft singing that accompanied all her actions. Real golden wealth. Naruto dozed off, obedient to someone else's gentle touches. Enchanted by them. Never before had she felt such warmth on herself. It was so maternal that it made her want to cry. Her eyes stung suspiciously. The hairstyle only seemed simple, but in fact it was a complex interweaving of strands, reinforced with many hairpins and invisible clips. On top, Mikoto added a hairpin with 3 long pendants in the form of jasmine flowers. Then came the turn of the Shiramakua wedding kimono. Snow-white fabric, embroidered with thin silver threads, covered with skillful patterns. The girl reverently ran her hand over it, a real work of art. Layer by layer, she immersed herself in its luxury. And when Mikoto, having finished, led her to a huge mirror, she was not surprised to see a completely different person there. Not Naruto Uzumaki. The bride of the heir of the Uchiha clan. In an instant, she became so adult. Her chest ached. The calm shine of her sky-blue eyes framed by black eyelashes, the neckline of her kimono revealed the graceful curve of her thin neck. The sleeves, like water, flowed down to the floor, where they merged with the long floors of her robe. She herself almost did not exist. Horns of jealousy lay on top of her head, on which an unfamiliar woman from the clan immediately threw a snow-white senokakushi with a scarlet lining. According to tradition, this veil is a subtle hint that jealousy is a bad feeling. You can't give in to it. A small bag and a small sword in a scabbard were attached to the obi belt. Mikoto specially fastened a fan to her belt so that it would open during the ceremony. For luck. The bride was ready. Naruto walked as if in a dream, barely keeping her balance under a pile of bedspreads and layers of fancy fabric. The wedding kimono was heavy, restricting her movement. It was as if she had been prematurely put into a silk cage from which she could no longer escape. She wanted to scream, rip these rags off herself and run away, far, far away. Kurama would definitely help her survive in the world outside the village, and she herself would not disappear, as a master of Fuinjutsu. But Uzumaki could not do that. This was her pride and the pride of the Uchiha clan. "You are very beautiful, Naruto, do not worry," Mikoto whispered to her quietly. The ceremony was held in the Uchiha clan temple. Mikoto left, she would be present at the ceremony as the mother of the groom. Naruto had to walk alone along the short path and enter the room, thereby confirming her consent. The girl sighed, straightened her shoulders, trying to forget about the weight of the kimono, even for a moment. She stepped carefully so as not to fall, in which her chakra helped her a lot. She didn't need to embarrass herself like that. Even if no one was visible nearby, this did not mean that the Uchiha were not watching her. The groom appeared right after her, when Naruto had just stood to the left of the altar, and stood to the right. In a black hakama with the Uchiha crests, Itachi looked many years older than his age. Full of restrained dignity and pride, with an imperturbable face. Naruto felt how her stupid heart, despite everything, began to pound like crazy, trying to jump out of her chest. To distract herself, she began to look around with interest and caution. She had never been inside a temple before. According to the rules, only the closest relatives and friends from both sides could attend the ceremony. But the space behind Naruto was empty. She had no parents, and no one she could invite. Across from her sat Mikoto and Fugaku, a stern man with a protruding jaw. And another guy, a little older than Itachi himself, with hair sticking out in all directions. And terrifyingly penetrating eyes, with which he literally pierced the bride. Naruto answered him with a direct look with a hidden challenge, and the stranger grinned. Even the corners of Itachi's lips twitched. He noticed the silent duel. The priest and the Miko came out to the altar, the groom and the bride bowed to the temple, sat down in the places prepared in advance. And the purification ceremony began. At that moment, the girl understood why the wedding kimono was made so heavy and dense. It resembled a cocoon. Outside it, a thunderstorm could rage. There was a barely familiar groom, the monotonous prayer of the priest could be heard. But inside it was calm and cozy, like in a protective shell. Naruto was given cups of sake, and was supposed to take 3 sips from each. Uzumaki barely kept herself from wrinkling her nose. Well, she didn't like the sake, what can you do? But she still drank what she was supposed to and immediately activated her chakra, driving away the rapid intoxication. Her voice sounded evenly, pronouncing an oath of allegiance, and Naruto promised herself that she would definitely remain herself. She would not allow the clan to remake her. 2 oaths rose to the ceiling of the temple, at once loud and silent, wordless, but both filled with power. Despite almost complete apathy, her hand shook mercilessly when she put the ring on the finger of her now husband. At some point, she was afraid that she would drop it altogether, but, thank Kami, this did not happen. Naruto quietly caught her breath. The light squeeze with which Itachi encouraged her gave her strength. And the ring no longer seemed so heavy, no longer burned her skin with fire. They stood up. In front of her, Naruto saw only Itachi's back walking ahead. Straight, strong, confident. He had no doubts about anything. Having made a decision, he went to the end. Just like her. They were photographed for the wedding album, after which Mikoto took Naruto away to change. Uchikake, the second kimono that was supposed to be worn after the ceremony. black, embroidered with gold threads and a gold belt. Naruto allowed herself to be changed, realizing that she could not have managed alone. Thank you, all her feelings poured out in one short word. Mikoto smiled, adjusted the hair clip in her hair. Well, it wasn't all that scary? She stroked the girl's cheek. Perhaps you think that the good of my sons is above all else for me. That's true. But now you are also part of my family. My daughter. The apathy receded, as if Uzumaki had been thrown out of her half-sleep into bright reality by a push. She swallowed the heavy lump that had risen across her throat. Thank you, Mikoto-san. Remember, you are Naruto Uchiha now. The woman hugged her briefly and immediately smoothed out the invisible folds on her elegant kimono. Let's go. There were several tables in the large banquet hall of the Uchiha mansion. Naruto was already waiting for Itachi at one of them, on a dais. She sat down next to him and folded her hands. And immediately she felt a light touch of cool fingers on her palm. Itachi did not look at the bride, looking at the first guest, who was rising, an old man with a long beard, probably the elder of the clan. But the girl felt that now all his feelings and care were directed specifically at her. And she briefly closed her eyelashes, giving thanks. Perhaps this marriage would not be a mistake, as she thought at the very beginning. Together with Itachi, they cut the cake, thanked the guests for coming. Without horns and a veil, her head seemed light, despite her hairstyle. Naruto accepted the congratulations of the other clan heads, with dignity, enduring their assessing glances, burning right through her. Now she is Naruto Uchiha, but like Naruto Uzumaki, she will not allow herself to be weak. She will cope. Her mantra, her spell, which worked. The celebration lasted until late at night. Sasuke was sent to bed at 10 o'clock, she really wanted to follow his example. Her eyes were sticking together, she wanted to yawn uncontrollably, but Naruto invigorated herself with Kyuubi chakra every time. A scorching alloy of hatred, rage and sincere care, running through the channels, drove away fatigue. And it was funny to watch how the sensors from other clans and Hyuga twitched when the fox's chakra flared up for a second. Naruto saw how Hayashi Hyuga secretly activated the Byakugan, and each time was left with nothing. The girl's chakra was consistently blue and calm. It was not for nothing that she spent so much energy on control. Another thank you. Itachi's parents, the guests, and the expanded Uchiha family went to see off the guests, presenting them with memorable gifts, the same sweets for everyone with a bouquet of flowers. The newlyweds bowed once again to the older generation, thanked them for their care, after which Itachi took Naruto by the hand and led him somewhere outside the mansion. They built us a house in the distance, on the clan's border, he explained quietly, while they walked along narrow paths between the bushes of hydrangeas and mallow. Tired? He stopped and turned to his wife. A little, Datebeo. Naruto yawned, covering her with her palm. Then I think it's better to do this. Itachi picked her up in his arms. A convulsive sigh involuntarily escaped the girl's chest. Don't be afraid, I won't hurt you, he whispered in her ear and rushed forward. Naruto closed her eyes, leaned against her husband's chest, listening to the loud beating of his heart. It felt so good in these strong embraces. Right. The small two-story mansion stood apart from all the clan buildings, almost in the forest itself. There was no fence around. Naruto only managed to notice a small pond, lined with stones along the edges, in front of the house before Itachi moved the shoujo aside and carried her inside. The darkness was uninhabited, smelled of cleaning products and lavender from moths, which gave the former Uzumaki a terrible headache. She promised herself to make another remedy, from rose hips, if only not to smell this cloying, strong smell. Itachi carefully lowered his burden on the threshold of their shared bedroom. On the windowsill stood a bouquet of those same hydrangeas they had run past. The large bed was made up with fresh, still crispy, bed linen. On top lay a beautiful scarlet blanket with funny tassels at the ends. Naruto was surprised to recognize it as the same one she often looked at in the store. But she couldn't afford it. And it wasn't even about the money she had it. She just felt that such an expensive thing would look out of place in her apartment. And now, she turned to Itachi, who was carefully watching her reaction. I thought that you weren't used to sleeping on a futon, and so, he waved his hand. Naruto bit her lip. For some reason she wanted to cry. She had completely fallen apart with today's experiences. Nothing, everything would return to normal tomorrow. Thank you, Datebale, she said quietly. Itachi nodded, accepting. Go to the bathroom first. You're tired. A new shock awaited her in the bathroom, a soft blue kimono embroidered with snow-white flowers. The Uchiha mentally groaned, slapping her forehead. She leaned her burning face against the cold tiles. She had completely forgotten about her wedding night. The bride was supposed to change her clothes again, put on makeup, and dance a fan dance for her husband, which the girl had been learning for the past week. Fortunately, the shinobi had no problems with memorization and coordination. Then there was supposed to be a foot massage. At the thought of Itachi's body spread out before her, Naruto's cheeks flushed poppy. Adrenaline drove away fatigue, made his heart beat faster. And then Naruto flushed again. Now even Enko's childishly naive explanation seemed depraved. Mikoto-san knew her son like no one else. She knew that he would let his wife into the bathroom first, and in such a simple way reminded him of his responsibilities. Naruto rinsed herself under the shower, forgetting to untangle her hair. She forgot about everything as she cautiously approached the blue kimono. She could easily manage this outfit on her own. The cool fabric slid gently over her smooth skin, hugging and emphasizing all the curves of her figure. Naruto had never even suspected that she had breasts before. Small, but firm and high, they lifted the thin fabric enticingly. The girl blushed. No, she would never put on makeup, never. Especially since she didn't know how. She paused a little in front of the bedroom door to gather her courage. She took a deep breath, clutched the unfortunate silk fan in her hand, and only then opened the door. Itachi was sitting on the bed, still wearing his traditional hakama. Waiting for her. Naruto walked with his head held high, despite the fact that her cheeks were burning. Naruto? There was indescribable surprise in her voice. It's tradition. She smiled, opening the fan. At one point, Itachi was next to her, squeezing her shoulders with his hands. Strongly, almost to the point of pain. He forced her to look into his eyes. Naruto drowned in the black pools again. Don't, he asked quietly. Neither you nor I are ready yet. Let's wait, because this is not required of us. We will have time later, Naruto. The girl shuddered. How? How did he guess how much effort it cost her to offer herself so shamelessly, even to her own husband? She pressed herself against Itachi, absorbing his strength, his warmth with her whole body. Strong arms wrapped around her back, his nose buried in the heavy strands of hair. Itachi inhaled her scent for a second, then pulled away. I'm going to the bathroom, and you lie down. Rest, today was a hard day. And he left without turning around. For which Naruto was sincerely grateful to him. She jerked her kimono off, wanting more than anything in the world to burn the hated rag. Stupid traditions. And she flopped down on the bed, furiously wrapping herself in the scarlet blanket, turning her back to the door. Itachi returned 20 minutes later. He turned off the light, lay down next to her and went quiet. He fell asleep. But Naruto couldn't sleep. The hairpins that she had thoughtlessly forgotten in her hair pricked terribly, as if she were lying on tacks. But she tried not to move, so as not to disturb Itachi. Then, a little later, when her husband fell asleep, she would get out of bed and take out those unfortunate hairpins. But for now she would have to wait. Suddenly, one of the piercing points disappeared, followed by another. Naruto was surprised to feel how dexterous fingers were taking the hairpins they could reach out of her hair. She turned to her husband in surprise. He didn't need light to distinguish the hairpins. Sharingan blossomed in his eyes, and the girl was mesmerized by the black pattern on the scarlet background. Sit down. Itachi stood up himself. You're too tense. Naruto obediently turned her back to him, not knowing how to act with him. As with a friend, so he is no longer a friend. As with a husband, so he himself refused to follow all the traditions. The guy carefully took out the hairpins, affectionately, almost tenderly. And Naruto, tense as a string, gradually relaxed. These touches, they excited and at the same time calmed. Everything will be fine with us, Itachi whispered right in her ear. Just be yourself, Naruto. A cascade of hair fell down her back, separating the girl from the heat of the half-naked Uchiha. Naruto moaned blissfully, relief spreading through her muscles. Shinigami, how good, date Bayo. She rolled her eyes, shaking her head. Itachi took her hands and turned her towards him. Naruto was wary. Her husband was looking seriously, he was testing her. Black eyes saw right through her. The Uchiha took the girl's palm and kissed it right in the center. Naruto shuddered, her eyes widened involuntarily. Like a lightning strike. Itachi looked up, not taking his eyes off the palm. I will be a good husband to you, he said clearly, distinctly, his eyes sparkling. As long as you are faithful to me. Naruto leaned towards him. I will be a good wife to you, she swore in response. As long as you are faithful to me. And in these words a warning and an unspoken threat. They are both too proud to forgive the other for rumors behind their backs. And they wanted an ordinary, normal life too much to wage war at home. It was their common, strongest, most truthful oath. A real one. Itachi grinned, lay down on the pillow again and pulled Naruto along with him. The girl found herself in his arms, fidgeting, getting more comfortable. Sleep, Naruto Uchiha, there were notes of pleasure in his voice. Naruto attributed them to her overly tired mind. We have nowhere to rush tomorrow. HM? The girl lifted her heavy head. Sleep rolled in waves, captivated her, she clung to reality with all her might. Tomorrow our honeymoon begins, an invisible smile was heard. Hokage-sama gave me a 2-week vacation in connection with the wedding. Good, Naruto yawned heartbreakingly, again buried her face in the Uchiha's chest. There was no strength left even for embarrassment. Get some sleep, date Bayo. A deep laugh came from above. And the newlyweds fell asleep almost simultaneously. The crazy day was over.